Hey guys, this is Ruben Langdon, aka Dante from Devil May Cry, aka Ken Masters from Street Fighter, and also Chris Redfield from the Resident Evil series. And you are listening to the Kasanova podcast, the #1 podcast in Hawaii. Jackpot.
The Kasanova podcast, the #1 podcast in Hawaii, is brought to you by these contributors on Patreon. If you'd like to see more content like this more often, as well as more podcast reviews, impressions, early access releases, live streams, and original content, then consider becoming a patron today. All right, and welcome everyone to another phenomenal episode of the Kasanova podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova. I'm coming at you with another interview, and in today's episode, I've got the true honor and privilege of interviewing the one and only Jay Sandlin. Now, Jay Sandlin is many things. He's a comic book writer, he's a debut series, Over the Ropes, and he's also the host of the phenomenal What Happens Next podcast. And it's just such an honor to have him on the show. His knowledge on various topics from comic books to entertainment and more is second to none. And I am so honored to have him on the show. So if you are ready to do it, I'm ready to do it. Let's go ahead and welcome Jay onto the show. All right, and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and I have the true honor and privilege of having the one, the only, Jay Sandlin. Now, Jay Sandlin is a phenomenal man, author. He is a podcast host, and just, man, can I keep promoting you right now?
No, actually, yeah, keep going. Actually, that could probably take up the rest of the show if you wanted to continue on. No.
How's it going?
It's okay. I am so thrilled to be here. You flew me all the way to Hawaii to be on the podcast with you, and so right? I'm glad to be here with you on the podcast in Hawaii. You know,
in the other bedroom.
Yeah, I'm just a one room away. Yeah, this is the yes, and I'm. Like you said, I'm a writer, comic books and books, short stories. My series right now running is Over the Ropes from Mad Cave Studios. This is issue 1. This is the original printing. It went to a second printing, and I don't have that one yet, but the variant cover of the second printing, if you go to madcavestudios.com, you need to take a look at this because it was based on Conan the Barbarian, except instead of the sword, he's lifting the title belt.
Nice.
With the girls on his legs, you know, that epic pose like Conan did.
Nice.
And I loved that variant cover. There have been a lot of variant covers for Over the Ropes to pop up. There was a classic WrestleMania Nintendo one, and there was also a few store variants. But issue 2 came out this month in January, and there's going to be 5. Same number of times that who was the 5-time world champion? Was it Booker?
Booker T? Yeah,
Booker. 5 time. 5 time. Yes, Booker. And then issue 3 will be coming out in March. That's the same time as my next comic from Mad Cave, Hellfighter Quinn.
Nice.
Which I know you're a big Mortal Kombat guy, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you're going to like Hellfighter Quinn. It's Mortal Kombat meets Bloodsport meets Highlander with superhero types. battling out for the object of great power and to, bring the power to their clans.
Nice.
I got the power. Yeah, I'm gonna send you an early copy.
Nice.
If I hadn't already. It's been a long month. I can't remember what I've done this month.
It's hard to believe. I know, we were talking about this before we started the podcast, but I mean, 1 month already in the books for 2020, 1920, like you said, was like 100 years ago. It is.
Yeah, the Roaring '20s was a century ago. I mean, we still think of 100 years ago as like the 1800s, right?
Right? Yeah.
Mm. Crazy.
Can you believe like 2000, like the year 2000 or 1999, like that was 20 years ago. Like that does not seem like it was that long ago.
I know, like my uber religious parents and their friends were stockpiling water and canned goods, in case the rapture didn't happen. Because I mean, down here in Alabama, I'm pretty sure there's like a rapture app now that's supposed to alert you when it happens.
Really?
It's an Alabama thing. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how we got on that subject, but back in 2011, they predicted the rapture again. And there was a WWE pay-per-view that night, and Kane walked out and said that he was pissed off the rapture didn't happen.
I remember that.
And now he's the mayor of Knoxville, just a few miles away from me. Yeah.
Oh man, it's absolutely crazy. But this is the second time I've had the honor to have you on the show. And dude, you've got so much going on.
Well, I've got more going on than the last time I came on the show. So that was why I had to bug you to fly me out to Hawaii and come back. Tomorrow we're gonna go surfing and get some matching henna tattoos, like BFF.
Right?
Yeah,
right.
BFF henna tattoos.
How do you manage, like, with everything you got going on with your comics, with your podcast, and with just everything that you do? Like, how do you avoid burnout and just keep that creativity just flowing?
It's actually something I'm struggling with right now, because while I have things coming out, stuff that is coming out now was in the works a year ago. So you mentioned, Space Police Files, which is not a comic book. That is my short story collection of five stories set within the Space Police Files, unredacted, uncensored, and irreverent world. I started writing that one to avoid burnout. Like you said, it was almost like an exercise. What I had finished a pretty large comic project that has not been announced, by the way.
Oh,
so stay tuned for that. You might hear more in the coming months.
Okay.
It was the largest comic project I'd ever worked on, or have ever worked on thus far. When that was done, I was looking for something to, stretch the creativity a bit. So I started writing some short stories and ended up putting 5 together and kind of weaving them into each other. So they would stand alone, but still work as a cohesive type work. I actually brought a like a snippet or a selection.
Ooh.
Would you like me to read?
Go ahead.
May I? Okay,
Go
let's
for
see.
it.
I thought I brought it. Hold on. This is live TV, folks.
It happens.
It happens. All right, here we go. So this is from this is the opening to the book. Each story is called, The Case of, because they're the space police. And the opening story is called The Case of the Exploding Vapor Virgin.
Wow.
All right. I'll read a little paragraph here.
Okay.
Antares 4, Financial District. An explosion detonated within Centauri Credit Union sent assorted body parts of, now former, bank clientele blasting through the doorway. Damn. Why does anyone bother banking in person anymore? auditory dampeners in my ears activated just in time for the follow-up detonation. I passed a sobbing mother on the street, snapping her tentacles in front of her squiddy kid in their hover carriage, probably deafened for whatever lifespan their species possessed. Enhanced senses really are a double-edged plasma blade. Brushing blood and guts from my trench coat, I stepped around the riot squad's line of locked shields. Spotting the captain, I flashed my credentials. Name's Kobe Maru. Hostage negotiations. I'll take it from here. So shit like that. I would sit down and I would write, and then I'd go back and edit. I'd work, and that was a way, trying something new, I guess is what I'm saying. Shift gears, write something different like you haven't done before. Mm-hmm. Same with podcasting or whatever else you're doing in life. Whatever your creative outlet is, change it up. Mm-hmm. Now at this point, with Space Police Files, it's on Amazon now. You can pick it up on ebook or a paperback. Mm-hmm. Whichever you prefer. I am kind of looking for the next thing to sink my teeth into. I've got some comic book prospects, but those always take time. You got to wait to hear back. You have to wait for artists, which is a bit like waiting for the rapture sometimes. So I've been kicking around one idea in my head today. What do you think about choose your own adventure books? Did you ever like those back in the day?
I did.
I've always loved those. Goosebumps had a great series of those from R.L. Stine, one of my all-time favorite authors. I've been playing around with the idea of doing something with that. Might get kind of complicated, but we'll see. Right. But it is hard. It is hard not to drown in your own anxieties from, real life when it gets to you. And sometimes you feel like you're just screaming into the empty void of irrelevancy, and nobody cares what you have to write or say or do.
Yeah.
And rejections. I get plenty of rejections,
Is it really?
What? Yeah. Do you think I am the one writer on the planet that doesn't get rejections?
Greatest of all time, man. Come on.
The day that Over the Ropes 2 came out this month was January 15th. I'll show you the email. Same day, I got a rejection that same day. For something else. So I was like, interesting. I have a comic released the same day I get a rejection. So I replied to them and said, look at this. I didn't do that. Do not do that. If you get a rejection, writers, etiquette is don't reply. They're not expecting a reply. They don't want one. They've clicked unsubscribe. You know how much you like it if you get a return email after you click unsubscribe? That's what it's like when you reply to a rejection to a writing project. It's not rude. You don't have to say thank you or whatever. Just move on, and you can submit to them again later because they'll be glad to hear from you again, as long as it's not the same project. And if it is the same project, you can probably submit again in at least 6 months. Mm-hmm. Because that's something it's hard to understand with writing is a no is never a definite no. It's a no, not right now. And no's often have little to do with your ability, your story, or whatever. It's always a matter of timing. And that's what I'm really bad at is research and looking into what is out there and what's going on and what is selling and what I need to be doing. Mm-hmm. And that's why some people prefer the self-published, self-funded route for writing. I self-publish Space Police Files because it's increasingly difficult to find any agents or publishing houses that would want to print short stories by a single author. Mm-hmm. Usually those come in anthology collections, and it's several authors that do them. So I self-published it. Mm-hmm. And when you self-publish, you control the narrative. It's like, what story do you want to get out? You decide what you want to do. You put it out there. It's your timetable. It's also your dime because, you're going to have an editor. You're going to have to get a cover. I had to make the cover for Space Police, whereas working with a publisher, which is called traditional publishing, as if that's a thing. Working with Mad Cave, who are amazing. They hire the editors, they hire the authors like me, and artists, and they make all the covers. They make, the presentation. You participate in the marketing, which is something I spend a lot of my day doing. If you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you've probably noticed that by now. We're all marketing ourselves, right?
And that's one of the things, I've been kind of vocal about this to the point where I've pissed off a number of people. But, when it comes to stuff that we do, be it podcasting, authoring, novels, short stories, or comics, or YouTube, or whatever it is that we're doing as effectively creative entrepreneurs, a lot of people don't understand that we're often one-man teams. Like, we are the PR people. We are having to put out the tweets and add the links and direct traffic to certain things. We're having to constantly post on different social media platforms. And when it comes to podcasting, we're the editors. And it seems like a lot of people, they don't grasp that concept. It's like, oh, okay, this is what you put out.
Yeah.
And it's like,
we are our own pimps.
That's true.
We are. That's true. We are our own pimps. That may make a good T-shirt.
I could see people buying it.
There's going to be some over the ropes T-shirts and merchandise coming. I don't have a date, but I'm going to guess it's going to be sometime by April-ish. That is when the trade paperback for all 5 issues will be collected in the one volume. And I think by then they'll have some shirts and some pins and things like that with the characters. I've been really happy with the response people have been giving to these characters, which patience is tough, because I wrote this starting in September of 2018. And I'm just now getting responses on what people think about these characters, the Phoenix and Blue Bomba, Barbed Wire, Brody Jackson, and the villains. And that's been it's been really great. I've really enjoyed that.
So and I saw that you had the fella Seamus. You picked up a copy of it. How was that?
Well, I saw him and said, hey fella, will you read my wrestling comic? And he was like, I'll knock you on your arse if you don't get out of my face. And I hit him in the shins, brought him down to my level, and put him in the cross-faced chicken wing like Bob Backlund, and held him there until he agreed to take a photo with my comic. And now he fears me, and all this kayfabe. No, Seamus lives in Nashville, Tennessee, where I went for a signing, and they told me his box was at that comic shop. And they had so many stories of what a nice guy he is, what a nerd he is. He was asking about custom action figures and getting books. So I made sure that he had some books left in his box.
Nice.
And I hope he gets by to pick up issue 2. As we can see, he's been very busy lately.
Yeah.
Because he was on a bit of a hiatus up until recently, and now he's back, and he worked with I'm not going to call him Shorty G, but Chad Gable, one of probably the most technically sound wrestlers in the world, and they're calling him Shorty G because it's a rib. What? I don't know. I hate it, actually. I like Chad a lot. But Seamus has been one of my favorites for a while. He is a very realistic, hard-hitting brawler.
Yeah.
And who are some of your favorite wrestlers?
Well, with the current WWE roster,
Any roster.
Let's see. If we go with WWE, Bobby Lashley, I'm going to put him at the top because I have seen what he used to do in TNA and Impact. And when he was a Destroyer, he was phenomenal. And I have no idea what the hell WWE is doing with him.
All right, let's talk about that a bit. Bobby Lashley debuted in the WWE version of ECW in the 2000s. That was like what, 06, 07 maybe?
Yes.
And, they obviously saw he had a great look.
Mm-hmm.
He had a great skill set, very athletic.
Yeah.
Maybe he still had a lot to learn, but they hot-shotted him as someone who they could see being the future, running with the ball.
Yeah.
For a while, that seemed to go well. You remember the really prominent role he had in the Donald Trump WrestleMania?
Yeah.
Something I don't,
Him and Umaga. Yeah.
And then at some point, it just what went wrong, in the first run? That's something I've always wondered.
When I've actually gone back over the last year and rewatched his original run, and I don't know, because he was hot. They hot shotted him like he was the next Brock Lesnar. Like he was pushed like the next Brock Lesnar. And it's like, I don't know, it just went under.
And then, like you said, he went around to Bellator, TNA. He established himself, and coming back, I don't know, on the current storyline, obviously he's getting a lot of screen time, which is good.
Yeah.
He's in a major storyline, and on paper, Bobby working with Rusev should be a winning feud.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody likes the soap opera stuff.
No. When you think about it too, like a lot of people kept saying that they wanted the Attitude Era back, but this is kind of the stuff that came with the Attitude Era. There was a lot of...
But less puppies. They don't show the puppies.
It's
the puppies. Yeah, I agree. I really just wish they could give us a series of Rusev and Lashley, just hard hitting, realistic matches. And, at some point, even for the title, I think Rusev is not going to be happy unless he gets to be the top guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he feels that spot, should be his, and really, and that's not negative. Everybody should feel that way, because if you don't, why are you there?
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think about the Fiend?
Okay, truthfully speaking, when he first debuted, I was impressed. I realized what they were doing, and I know a lot of people that I know personally don't really get it, but you have to have that supernatural character that takes over for Taker, and they don't have it. Well, they kind of have it with him now, but when I see the Fiend wrestle and the way that they book it, or initially, and I'm not sure if they're still doing that so much now, but the whole thing where he gets beat down, and then he comes back. No, if he's a monster out the gate, he needs to just be destroying. Like
they need to commit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with you that wrestling needs strong characters.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry if it makes sense or not, because it doesn't have to. It's a TV show. No one's pretending that this is the Olympics.
Yeah.
So that's why nobody should complain. Oh, this is not realistic. And it's like, dude, you cheered for an undead zombie wizard since you were a kid, and his pyromaniac demon brother. I mean, come on. With AEW, they've got the dinosaur and Jungle Boy, Chris Stratlander, the alien. I don't know why an alien came to Earth and decided to be a wrestler, but I've been enjoying her.
Mm-hmm.
I've been enjoying AEW in general.
See, I haven't had the opportunity to watch AEW aside from
definitely check it out.
Like the only thing I've caught so far is like AEW Dark. Like I haven't seen any of the pay-per-views, but I get two different opinions like from people about it. I hear from some people that absolutely love it, but they say that there are areas where it could tighten up a bit. And there are people that I feel like possibly are WWE only fans who don't like it. And I've had this opinion for a while that there's a difference between wrestling fans and WWE fans.
What would you say the difference is?
I feel like for WWE fans, they may not be used to or understand technical wrestling. Like if you see, if we were to say like a match between like Angle and Eddie Guerrero going at it in a technical level, the modern era of WWE fans, they get bored because they want something to constantly pop to them. I could be wrong.
That's interesting. It's an interesting view. I think that I do think you're right. Because there are people who believe wrestling begins and ends with WWE.
Mm-hmm.
That has never been true. But now there have never been more alternatives because you've got AEW, New Japan, and you've got NWA, which I've not really had a chance to check out yet, other than just to hear that.
So good. It's so good.
Are you enjoying it?
I am enjoying it. It's different, but it's really, really good. It reminds me when I used to live in Memphis, when my mom would take me down to Mid-South Wrestling. We'd go and watch Jerry Lawler and Coco Beware when he would come back occasionally. We got to see the matches there and in that studio format, and it was so good. And so for me, it's nostalgic, but I can understand some people who are not familiar. Yeah.
Studio wrestling, it does have a real nice, quaint feeling to it and nostalgic feeling. I think there's definitely a place for it for sure. You mentioned Memphis. I don't mean to put you on the spot. All right, you can edit out if you want to, but have you read Over the Ropes so far?
So far, to be completely honest, I have not had the opportunity to do so.
So issue 2 takes place in Memphis.
Ooh.
Yes, and the Phoenix, our main wrestler, he becomes the champ in issue 1, and his first title defense is in Phoenix. Phoenix's first title defense is in Memphis against a sumo size Elvis impersonator type named Jesse Presley, the Prince of Rock and Roll.
Ooh,
he's a Yokozuna meets the Honky Tonk Man, and he is sent to teach Phoenix a painful lesson by shooting on him. He gets paid to shoot on him by the promoter because of his actions in issue 1. I got that. When in wrestling terms, to shoot on someone, to really hurt them, to really fight, really with bad intentions. People get hurt in wrestling, obviously, through the course of the regular job, accidentally. But the standing rule is a man puts his well-being and his body in your hands. You take care of him.
Yeah.
To shoot on someone is the antithesis of what wrestling is all about. So that's why, to set up some real stakes in the story, I made that out of the villains. And I was I thought of some real instances of shooting, when wrestling matches became a shoot. One that came to mind was, it didn't actually happen, but apparently the Iron Sheik was offered somewhere in the 6 figures to break Hulk Hogan's leg at one point.
Oh.
to stop the first WrestleMania from happening.
Wow.
That may just be one of those urban legends. I don't know.
I was thinking like the worst shoot that I've ever seen was like the one with Perry Saturn, and then they punished him by giving him the mop gimmick.
Yes, because he went off on somebody.
Yeah.
Who did he go off on? Like, he beat the shit out of somebody.
It was
nobody that went on to do anything.
No, was it like a local talent at one of the shows?
Local talent, and he was supposed to be jobbed, squashed. He was supposed to be squashed, and I guess Perry thought he took some liberties and just. I need to YouTube that again. I'll tell you a better one. This one's old school. Antonio Inoki.
Oh,
Japanese wrestling royalty. Antonio fought Muhammad Ali and fought, all kinds. He wrestled Hogan. There was a strong man who went by the name the Great Antonio.
Yeah.
Yes, huge guy, just huge, massive, and they put them in the ring together. And the Great Antonio didn't want to sell for him; just kind of was doing this ho 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 ho.
Yeah.
And I think Inoki got pissed and said, "If you won't sell, I will make you sell." If you look up that YouTube, it's brutal.
He beats the shit out of him.
He chops him down like a redwood.
Man.
I think Bruiser Brody was known for that as well.
Yeah.
Oh, Andre the Giant and the Ultimate Warrior. The story goes that Warrior was being too rough in the ring, and Andre was kind of at the end of his career and told him to calm down, and Warrior was like, "I'm the Warrior." And allegedly, Andre, the next time Warrior came at him off the ropes, Andre just stuck out his fist, and Warrior hits it, and
oh damn.
Yeah, that's not the only Warrior story. Rick Rude also had to tell the Warrior to calm down, or he was going to hurt him. And and Warrior was like, "I'm the Warrior," and Rick Rude slapped the taste out of his mouth backstage. Rude is one of my all-time favorite villains. He's, Rick Rude.
Yeah. I remember when he showed up. I think it was the same night he was on Raw and Nitro.
Yes, the tape show and the live show. Yep.
Oh man.
The main villain of Over the Ropes is the promoter. His name is Ricky Radisson, and I took his look from Rick Rude.
Ooh.
He acts more like a Mr. McMahon character, but he looks a bit like a Rick Rude.
Okay, so speaking of which, when it comes to modern day wrestling villains,
yes,
do you think we still need a McMahon style or authority type heel, or do we just need people like Jericho or what's the other guy in AEW? I'm trying to think of his name. He wears a scarf. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, MJF.
Yeah.
Yeah, MJF wears my sister's favorite scarf from 2005. I would say that I think the authority figure will always work, broadly speaking, in wrestling, because wrestling is ultimately an underdog story.
Mm-hmm.
And who doesn't want the, fantasy or the storyline of just kicking the shit out of their boss sometimes?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it always has to be the story, but I think it will always have a place there. It makes sense because, the best way to get a baby face over is to give him adversity. And they did it with Daniel Bryan, at WrestleMania 30 with Triple H and the Authority, who, come out and say, "We're going to keep you down. You don't belong in the main event. You're a B+ player." Another wrestler can say that to him, and it's trash talk. But if the authority figure says it, then it means something. There's weight to it, because I'm saying it, and I have the power to keep you down. So I think it will always work in this type of atmosphere. But there should always be something different. I think Jericho has been the best he's ever been in his career right now. If you get a chance to watch AEW, Le Champion, it's hard to boo him. I think people just boo him because they have to.
Yeah.
But they appreciate the work he's doing and the character he's playing.
The thing I really like about Jericho, like I've seen a lot of the clips from him in AEW, and what he's been able to do for like the last, should I say 3 decades or so? Yeah, 3 decades is always reinvent himself. And that is so hard. Like he went from, the Lion Tamer to Y2J to the list of Jericho to a little bit of the bubbly Le Champion. Like he just keeps changing, and you see so many wrestlers that are just stale. And I don't know, like when I look at MJF and when I've seen some of his promos and stuff, and I'm like, this guy is like the next Jericho. He's got that down, like that persona. He stays in character.
Maybe so. He does stay in character. Yeah, it's fun to watch him on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People get so triggered.
He's got to be sitting back loving that.
Yeah.
He's thinking, dance, puppets, dance.
Right.
It's just too easy. Yeah. If you're missing out on AEW, you're also missing out on the great work that the American Nightmare Cody is doing. I wish he was my best friend. In my mind, we're best friends, and we hang out and read comics and play Zelda together because we're both big fans of Legend of Zelda.
You should have him on your show.
Yeah, sure. I'll get right on that.
Well, you want the contact? I can get it to you.
Okay, sure. Let's do that.
Okay.
I'd rather get him a copy of Over the Ropes, really.
But speaking of which, you are, a fan of Zelda. You've been playing a lot with the Nintendo Switch since you got your Switch. You got Luigi's Mansion. You got Breath of the Wild. How have you liked it so far? Like, how is it fitting into your life?
It's actually Link to the Past that I've been playing since Christmas. Link to the Past is just great for whether you just want to walk around and cut grass with the sword or, complete the missions. I love any Zelda game. Nothing will ever top Ocarina of Time for me. But Link to the Past has been fun because I had it on Game Boy as a kid.
Okay.
Luigi's Mansion is very cool. I have been playing it with my son, so I'm kind of on his schedule with it. His patience with getting through some of the levels, and I'm stuck right now on this ghost boss that possesses a piano and like throws bombs at you. I've been trying to beat him. I'm sure people will comment, "Oh God, you noob! It's so easy," but it's hard for me. Damn it, leave me alone.
I think that's it's either that boss or there's another boss in the game that everybody's complaining about. That they say Nintendo needs to patch it because it's super difficult. Yeah, like one of my friends, he was streaming it, and
let's just say it's mine. Let's just say it's mine. Yeah, it's mine for sure.
Yeah, he was stuck for like 3 hours on that one boss, and he's like, "This is just ridiculous." Like everybody I know who's played that game is talking about this one boss, and I think it is that boss, or it's a basement boss, or something like that.
There is a basement boss, and there's a kitchen basement. I don't know. In any event, I think Luigi's Mansion is just a really creative game. I just beat Mario Odyssey right before Christmas as well.
Mm-hmm.
But when you beat it, there's a whole lot of replay value, which I started to dive into. I love some Mario. I think those are some of the most well-made, enjoyable games for all ages, and I'm always gonna like them.
Awesome.
I hope so.
What do you think of so with this year? I know there's so much coming out, and there's so many games that are being like remade or remastered, and I'm seeing less and less new original titles, and I'm wondering, is it because of lack of originality, or just lack of new ideas that haven't already been done?
There's no lack of originality and there's no lack of ideas. I think it's the same that we see with movie studios and people trying to bank on established properties that are a sure thing, and they're, or at least more of a sure thing. Because it's, things aren't getting cheaper. The marketing cost behind games, movies, and shows for something that does not have a name already. And it's very discouraging, especially for creatives who want to create their own things. I've been working on this one novel for the last 2 years now, and I'm just having to put it aside. I do have it on submission one other place, but I'm going to have to put it aside and move on to something else because, why would somebody want to invest in something that no one's ever heard of when they can get the rights to, X property, and then we'll consume it. And since everything has a streaming service now, they're looking for all these properties to go into.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a big Trekkie, but just tonight I was watching Picard.
How
Star
is that
Trek
show?
Picard. I watched episode 1. It's free on YouTube for a limited time. Amazing. I mean, Patrick Stewart, it's kind of hard to mess things up with Patrick Stewart in it, but
yeah,
I will, this is going to be my new favorite Trek. I can already tell after one episode. If you're into Trek, go watch this. I love Star Trek, but the show I really want to see come back is Farscape.
I remember that show.
Did you ever watch that show?
I remember watching that with my sister a few years back. I don't remember the details, but I do remember watching it.
Watching Farscape with my sister, that sounds like the most at-home Christian night. I watched Farscape with my sister. At least say you watched it with like a hot chick or something, man.
No. Okay, so
I'm from Alabama. I'm from Alabama, so maybe they're the same thing. But I mean,
no, because like with my sister, if she has the TV remote, if she wants to watch something, that's what we're watching. Like, there's no debate. My mom's the same way too. So it's
actually, my sister was the same way. Back to Nintendo. I almost lost an eyeball over Mario Kart with my sister.
Are you serious?
When we were young, yes, Nintendo 64, and I'm just in the room, minding my own business, playing my N64. She comes like, give me that. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of a race. I'll give it to you next. Scratched my cornea. I couldn't wear contacts for like a week. It was,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That's that. I still bring that up to her, actually.
How does she respond?
She claims not to remember. I think she must have signed an NDA at some point. And, she says, I have no knowledge. I have no recollection of these events. I was like, are you running for office or something? Of course I remember this. I remember it because she did that to me and I got in trouble.
How?
Because when she did it, I started doing this, my eyes, and apparently I batted her as I did it. Cause scratch someone's eyeball, they're going to react.
Yeah.
And she went and cried and said, I hit her. And I'm clearly like, I have to go to the doctor. Like I didn't do it. Yeah. I've mentioned that. I've bugged my parents about that before too, and reminded them of that.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for an engraved apology and a lifetime supply of Mario Kart games, because I love Mario Kart still to this day. I'm glad I have 2 eyes to play it with.
It's supposed to be a new one. What I've heard in the pipeline there is Mario Kart 9 is supposed to come out this year. They're supposed to reveal it at E3. So
I'm ready for that. Well, Mario Kart is great. It's definitely, a great party game. I like the solo play. I'd like to have more for the solo play on Mario Kart. I don't know if that would be the form of like maybe more tracks, more cups, more unlockables. I'd say just more,
Yeah.
Remember, I tell you a racing game that's really underrated and did not spawn a big franchise like maybe it should have, but Diddy Kong Racing.
That was so good. There was so much versatility in that game.
Yes, because you weren't just a car. You could be a plane or a hovercraft.
Yep.
And there was a story to the racing.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it was as good as Nintendo 64 could be. I would like to see them, revisit that.
Yeah, they definitely. I know they They sort of remade it on the DS like a while ago, but I would like to see a full-fledged from the ground up like Resurgence, because there was nothing like it.
Very like racing adventure game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had more meat to it. Obviously, Mario Kart is the franchise, but I think that could be viable as well. Another franchise that I loved but didn't play much. I never played it, I should say, past the N64 was Star Fox.
You haven't missed much.
Didn't Star Fox didn't it kind of go off the rails on the GameCube? Like they did something totally different with like a magic staff and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, Starfox Adventures was basically just an Ocarina of Time clone.
Why? We already have Zelda,
People hate it to this day. And then they made a sequel to that, Star Fox Assault, which was not good. It tried too much to be 64. And then you had another one which was touchscreen only, which didn't work. And then they remade Star Fox 64 again. And then Star Fox Zero, which came out on the Wii U, was basically just Star Fox 64 again.
So what about Switch?
I've heard they're gonna re-release Star Fox Zero, but I don't know.
So they can't make an original Star Fox game, apparently. Because it wasn't because Star Fox 64 was a remake of the Super Nintendo, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhat. So yeah, I don't know. I loved Star Fox 64. I played that. I would get home from school and just think about playing that game. And there was this urban legend on the internet, in the infancy of the internet, that if you entered a certain sequence of buttons on the title screen, the game would flip and you played as Star Wolf.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it wasn't true.
No,
it wasn't true, but I would try so many things and I'd be like, why isn't it working? Did I get a defective cartridge? I better blow on it some more. That needs to be another t-shirt. Blow that cartridge.
Right?
I blew cartridges.
No, but think about it. Like back in the day, like and for the younger people, yes, the internet was not what it is now. Back then, it was way different, and there was so much. Well, I guess there's some similarities. There's a lot of misinformation that goes around, but back then, it's like if you were a kid, you took everything, like literally. Oh, I need to find out if this works.
How do I? True.
Yeah, right.
So, all right, I would love a chance. I tell you what, Star Fox would make an awesome series of graphic novels.
It would,
yeah, as would Legend of Zelda, for that matter. I've always thought that should be a graphic novel series. Maybe one day Nintendo will let me write it. I tell you, a video game character I would love to write would be Mega Man.
They need it. That story is all over the place.
I love my Mega Man. I don't. Yeah. Well, they reboot him and reimagine him in so many ways. So
yeah,
it's like it's a Mega Man multiverse.
Yeah.
So that would be something that I would have fun with. Is like if all the Mega Men from various games were like drawn together, in a multiverse for a mega event. That would be something really fun. Kind of like in the realm of Spider-Verse.
Okay.
One of my favorite movies ever.
Would you, speaking of that, but okay, Spider-Verse 2, do you think when they make that, do you think it will top the first?
I don't know. I don't have anything to judge it by. I feel like they know how to do it and how to work the formula. And now that they've really got Miles introduced and established, they've got a really good chance to. Also, bringing in Spider-Man 2099, That's something I've been looking forward to for a while because he is
Mhm.
one of my very favorite incarnations of the character, and I'm a big fan of having Oscar Isaac do his voice.
Okay.
Um, I actually I would like to see it with Spider-Man 299, like maybe even having a solo film at some
Oh,
point if they thought to spin that off or something, even if it was just like maybe a TV show. Um,
okay.
I don't know I'm wondering. Like, I'd have to know more. I would need more information. Like who's the villains? What's the threat? What's the story going to be? I'm very interested to find out because that's one of my favorites, and I hope all the other cast gets to come back. The other Spider-Men, but of course they got to add some more.
Yeah.
I
So,
think
so
we'll
do
probably
you
see like an army of them this time.
so do you feel like there is with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, do you feel like there is superhero fatigue when it comes to like all these superhero movies coming out? Do you think we need a break, or do you think they're doing fine?
Let me rephrase the question. Every year there's romance movies that come out.
Okay,
Does anyone ever ask if we're needing a break from the romance genre
good point.
or the action movie genre or drama, horror? No, it's a genre of film, and it's always been a genre of story because comic books have come out monthly
Hmm.
consistently in some forms for the last 100 years now.
Hmm.
No one ever asked, "Hey, do we just need a break from all these comic books coming out for a month? We're fatigued." Um, I don't see it that way. That's just kind of nonsensical to me because it's just another form of storytelling, and we don't need breaks from that. If there's something that you don't want to see, then obviously you can skip it.
Yeah.
There's not been a superhero movie that I've skipped that I can think of since all this broke out, but I was never going to skip any. Now look, I've been going to see superhero movies since Shaq played Steel. Yeah. And then let's see, there was Meteor Man. there were there were some bad ones. I mean, you had the Christopher Reeve movies. You had the Batman movies, which I was too young to go see the first two in theaters, but then I saw Batman Forever in theaters, and then
Hmm.
I saw Batman and Robin in theaters, and yeah, that killed Batman movies for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, but films like Blade and Daredevil and the Raimi Spider-Man, and it's just not slowed down since. So that the first Spider-Man movie was almost 20 years ago now. Can you believe that?
Right. And I still think Spider-Man 2 holds up very well.
Yes, we agree. I saw that 5 times in theaters,
So
and I brought
no.
a different girl with me every time because I have 4 sisters. No, just kidding. I don't.
No, but I like the way I like that you put it that way because it makes a lot of sense. Like when because I never even thought of that either. Like the way you put it, like it do we have enough love stories and action movies every year? Like that's a really good way to put it. That's a really good perspective to see it. It's like it's just you're right. It's another genre of film, and I feel like one thing I do think you can disagree with me. It's completely fine. I do think that DC technically could have built upon the Dark Knight trilogy as its foundation and went from there instead of trying to just reboot everything with the Man of Steel and then trying to rush to do Justice League just to compete with Avengers.
I think you're onto something there. It's a lot of hindsight required, but you could say on the one hand that the Dark Knight trilogy really needed to exist in its own universe, and that was
Mhm.
how Christopher Nolan saw it. From my perspective, I don't think that. I think that Batman belongs in the larger DC universe because what makes Batman special is that he doesn't have powers, right?
Mhm.
But then you put him in a world where no one else has powers either. He's the most powerful guy there. He might as well be the Superman.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so in my opinion, when the Dark Knight trilogy was running, a lot of people don't talk about this anymore, but you did have a Superman movie,
Yep.
Superman Returns.
Yep.
So, and Brandon Routh, whatever you thought about the movie, Routh was fantastic as Superman.
Yeah.
And he just came back in CW's Crisis and reminded everyone with his performance how good he is.
Mhm.
So yeah, I like to imagine, what would the world be like, or what would the DC films have been like if Brandon Routh and Christian Bale had gotten to make a movie together where they set up like the Justice League and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't see why they would have had. It seems like DC wanted to rush to get their Justice League together. I don't agree with that. Which Marvel didn't agree with that either. They didn't want to rush to bring the Avengers together.
Yeah.
It was a moderate build where they would tease it, and then when you got it, it was nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, just like when you blow on that cartridge just right.
Make it a shirt.
Make a shirt. Maybe one day I can make shirts that people buy. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens when the over the rope shirts come out, which um that's going to be wild for me to have something I, like created on a shirt.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I've been it's on the bucket list. I'll tell you what's really on the bucket list is an action figure of something I made.
Okay.
I would love to have it. I always imagined like I would love to have an action figure just because I love it. I love action figures in general.
Mhm.
It's something I created to be an action figure, or specifically a Funko Pop would really kick ass.
Well, let's see. If Well, I'm not sure what your schedule is going to be like in August, but when we're done, I can start putting you in contact with people in conventions out here in Hawaii that fly people out. Because we have a
Well,
large comic book community and graphic novel community out here in Hawaii. So, just saying.
let's do it. Yeah. I mean, you already flew me out here for this, so it was so what are we going to do tomorrow, man? We're going to hit up the gym together, and get our pump on.
Do that, go up to the North Shore, hit some waves,
Hit some waves.
some
Who,
tacos.
who's your favorite? There's been some Hawaiian wrestlers.
I know Kona Reeves is from here.
Yeah.
I met him.
Oh.
He's yeah. um I'm trying to think of a wrestler I've met that's been nice and not a douche.
I just remembered that the story of The Rock and his family living in Hawaii. And while they were living there, they got evicted,
Yeah, they
Yeah.
actually lived, I want to say, not far from where I am now, but they lived out here for I think like a year or two. He went to McKinley High School, which apparently a lot of the celebrities who come out of Hawaii, they all went to that one school. It's crazy. Him, Bruno Mars, Jason Momoa, all went to McKinley High School. It's absolutely insane.
Crazy.
The most like ghetto school. One of the most ghetto schools.
By the way, I meant to ask what you thought about Joker.
Okay. I liked this Joker. I liked how in a way realistic it was, and even how disturbing it is, because I think it shines a light on how a bad day can really, create, how a person takes events or a bad day and what they do with it. And it shows the extremes of how far, if you go one side, how far they can go with it. I liked Joaquin Phoenix's Joker a hell of a lot more than I liked the last guy who played Joker.
Sad, but true.
Really?
Sad, but true. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
But
it was the character design didn't work for me. It was just a little too much. To be fair, I mean, he was almost a supporting character in Suicide Squad, and that's
yeah,
what we have. But that's what we had to judge him by.
yeah.
So.
And so between Joaquin Phoenix's Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker, which is your favorite?
I mean, for me, it's going to be Heath Ledger because The Dark Knight is one of my all-time favorite films, and the Joker, in that, it's no contest for me. It's definitely Heath Ledger's Joker.
He is as unhinged as Joaquin's his. I just feel like Heath Ledger's was just, he was comical, but you could see somebody really like that, like someone that unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I don't know. I remember going and seeing that movie in theaters back in, I think it's 2008,
Mm-hmm.
and with my first wife's family, and they were so disturbed by the movie. I was like, man, fuck yeah, this movie's awesome. Love the Joker.
I did take a girl on a date to see The Dark Knight the weekend it premiered, and I was not ready for how much I was going to like that.
Right.
If she had not, it was like I don't think it was our first date, but it was definitely like an early date in this particular relationship. And she told me later, she said, I was kind of hesitant to date you because I just really thought that you were so like preoccupied with, like Star Wars and comics and such. And I'm like, oh, but then you went out with me and what? She's like, well, we went and saw this movie and it proved it. So I broke up with her. A few months later.
So for, and I think up until that point, like superhero movies, up until that movie, always kind of had that campy feeling to it, like that summertime camp. I'm not sure how else to describe it, but
well, Batman 89 didn't, and Batman Returns didn't, and that was when people started complaining because they wanted to sell more toys, and it was harder to sell toys. And then you get Blade, and I think Blade showed, hey, you can make this original and realistic. Blade was like, let's make it realistic.
Yeah.
And then you get the Spider-Man films, and that had something for everybody.
Yeah.
Because, adults were into it and they could sell a lot of toys. I think that was really the model for where the Marvel universe followed. Nolan didn't care so much about the toys and went for, he made, I don't care as much for The Dark Knight Rises. I will confess that. I don't dislike it, but it's not one I would sit down and rewatch a lot. And it was kind of, the plans had to change, obviously, after Heath Ledger died. So that was just a huge downer. Huge downer.
Yeah. And that was also a hard movie to follow up, too.
How are you going to follow that?
Yeah.
How are you going to follow that?
If they did it right, that would have been the end of the trilogy. That would have been a hell of a way to go out on a bang.
But yeah, I would have loved to have seen a Justice League form around Christian Bale, Brandon Routh, and then bring in the rest of them. Not Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern, which was apparently supposed to be the basis for a Justice League, and that movie is still spoken of in like such hushed whispers. It's like, we do not speak of it. We do not speak of it.
But okay, so if you were to compare Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel,
Yeah,
which did it better? Like, which?
They're totally different. One is mythology based, divinity based in the Greek pantheon, and Captain Marvel is alien sci-fi. So they don't really have a lot in common to me. In terms of just what I personally like, it's that's a tough decision, because I do like the cosmic scope of Captain Marvel. I like the space stuff. I would have actually liked to have seen more space stuff in Captain Marvel, and I'm hoping that the sequel doesn't even take place on Earth. That's what I hope. I hope it's just purely her, kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy, but Captain Marvel out in space, taking on, she might fight Ronan, depending on when it takes place, or any other number of Marvel villains they haven't used yet. I tell you what would be cool. There's an alien species in Marvel Comics that has not appeared in the MCU yet. They are called the Brood, and they are basically clones of the xenomorphs from Alien. And I would really be interested to see, especially considering, Disney owns Fox and they own Alien, don't they?
They should.
I don't know. If Disney doesn't own it by now, they will. So, yeah, Captain Marvel versus Alien would be a great idea for a movie, in my opinion.
Okay.
Who's the real queen? She'd have to say that at some point. Like, who's the real queen? Maybe Predator can help her out too.
So what are your thoughts on so I know you're into Star Wars. What did you think of the last movie?
I liked the last movie as it stands alone. However, I've got to be disappointed in the trilogy overall for just doing nothing whatsoever to foreshadow Palpatine's return. It felt so tacked on and forced. And if that was what they had been leading up to for 2 movies, then I think it would have been brilliant. But it seems to me like they tried to scramble to please some people after The Last Jedi had such crazy mixed reviews. But I am positive about it. I'm positive about a lot of things, but it leaves me with a lot of questions that either won't get answered, or they might get answered in 15 years in a novel, that you have to read, which is, to be fair, that's how Star Wars has done a lot of things. I'm kind of questioning Snoke and what he was exactly. And, Palpatine said that he made Snoke. So was Snoke something he cloned, created? Did he control it like a puppet? Was that the indication, or what? I don't know. And then learning that there were other scripts before that didn't even go in that direction, that didn't have Palpatine come back. That disappointed me, because like, if that was the plan, why wasn't that the plan from the beginning?
Yeah.
And why didn't it work towards that? Obviously, they know how to tell stories that way, because they did it with the MCU and Thanos. If they had done that with Palpatine, something like that, then I think it would have been really well done. But as it was, for the one movie, taking it as it was, I did really like it. It was satisfactory to end the trilogy.
I want to agree with you about the Palpatine thing, because I really hated The Last Jedi. Absolutely hated that movie. I felt like it shat on the legacy of Star Wars. There's a lot of things that just to me just didn't make sense in the from the extended universe as well as the trilogy, well, both original the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. But what I agree with you with the whole thing with Palpatine, because it was so left field when they just brought him in. You're like, wait, what? You
Yeah.
weren't expecting it. And I thought for the longest that the buildup was towards Snook being the big bad guy.
Snook.
You know?
Snook Dogg.
Snook.
Snoop Dogg. Yeah. I had my own pet theory about Snoke that got,
Snook. We're saying Snook, not Snoke. Snook.
okay,
He got
Snook.
snooked.
He got yeah, he got his cartridge blown. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah, I agree. He kind of went out like a punk, but so do a lot of Star Wars villains for that matter.
Yeah.
So, Boba Fett, anybody? Yeah. Definitely love the Mandalorian though.
Yes. Yes.
Very well done. I want to see more Star Wars told like that. I know that they're going to do an Obi-Wan series, and I'm really excited about that.
Who's directing that? Is it the same guy from The Mandalorian?
I have no idea.
Oh.
I really don't know what's involved in that. I know it's going to happen, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay. So with do you think following this last Star Wars movie, do you feel like there's going to be like another trilogy series, or do you think they're kind of just going to cool it?
No, they're not going to cool it. There's going to be more TV shows. I think there'll be more movies. They said that this is the end of the Skywalker saga, but I don't see why they couldn't just keep making movies with Rey, Finn, and Poe. I don't see why they couldn't now show Rey reforming the Jedi Order and beginning, she would take Finn as her first student and then, more students from there. I would like to see her do, what Luke told her to do, which was to be better than him, pass on what you have learned. And I don't agree with you completely that The Last Jedi was terrible and shat on the legacy of Star Wars, but I will say that I don't like how Luke Skywalker was portrayed. I don't like what they did with him, running off to hide. And
Yeah.
And the last movie addresses that where he says, I was wrong. It's like, well, no shit. So why'd you do it? I really wanted to see new movies with Luke as, kind of like the prequels. He's the head of the Jedi Order. He's reached a point where there's a significant number of Jedi in the galaxy, and they have to take on a new threat. Would that have been so hard to have because Luke apparently in the 30 years, it's a time period. Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens is a 30-year period. And 5 years prior to The Force Awakens is when Kylo killed all the Jedi. So for 25 years, Return of the Jedi to 25 years later, Luke had only started to train a few people. What was he doing for 25 years? I would really like to know. We know that he spent some time trying to hunt down that Exegol planet for whatever reason. A world of the Sith, okay. But why not train some Jedi, Luke? You're the last one, maybe you got to get started on that. But he essentially waited 25 years because Ben, we're learning more about what he was doing in some comic books by Charles Soule called The Rise of Kylo Ren, which are very new and I'm not going to talk about. But he did not pass on what he learned, and that always bugged me because the first thing they had him really do in the expanded universe was form a Jedi Academy. That was a trilogy of novels back in the 90s that I really loved, the Jedi Academy trilogy. And then they released a series of young adult books following young Jedi Knights that Luke was training. Those were some of my favorite Star Wars growing up, those books. So it literally stepped on my childhood when I found out Luke did not go on to train a whole new generation of Jedi.
Yeah.
So I would like to see Rey go on and do that. I guess if this is the story they gave us, at least have Rey go on and do that. Maybe like a Jedi Academy TV series on Disney Plus could be cool.
Yeah, you definitely do that. And speaking of Disney Plus, what do you think of that service so far?
It's great. I think it's gonna have to grow a lot and really flesh out some of the content for the adults.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you kind of watch the streaming shows that you see, there's not really a lot for you as an adult to just sit and watch.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's great for families.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like maybe Netflix and Hulu is for your adult watching, and Disney is for the family watching, aside
Mm-hmm.
from certain streamings. That's how I look at it.
Okay. Right. And shifting gears, I want to ask you about podcasting. So I know, you and we've spoken about this before, but I'm definitely feeling at this point, like when it comes to podcasting, it kind of can get to a point where it's like you're networking. It's just, building networks, building relationships.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. My podcast, What Happens Next, Jay Sandlin's What Happens Next is on all the podcast players. I love Castbox. That's where I get most of my podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also on Apple and Google and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I am really a place to feature creatives, whether it's writers or artists or whatever your art may be.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give kind of a platform to talk about what it is you're doing and try to find creative ways to feature your creativity. We've
Mm-hmm.
done that by playing D&D style card games. We've done, the fictional battles here and there and interviews. And we've also done, recently we did tarot card readings
Mm-hmm.
with some creatives. So we're always, you'll never guess what happens next. This is the point of the show. I've tried to nail down a format, but every time I get a new guest or set of guests, it ends up evolving to kind of suit who's on the show. And I like, I don't mind that. I'm embracing that. It used to kind of bother me because I'm like, no, I have to have a certain format and do a certain thing. I finally given that up. What comes. Yeah.
What do you think of because and this is something I've noticed, especially on the YouTube side, where you've got so many people, both are not only YouTubers and streamers from Twitch, but you also now have a lot of celebrities. Like almost everyone now is jumping into the podcast platform, and it's like the cool kids thing to do. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think is this just a fad or a trend, or do you think it's going to stay for a while?
Oh, it's staying. It is. It's just another form of entertainment. It's like episodes of television shows.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it just, and some will come and go. There's a lot. You say that, but do you know that I don't know what the statistic is. It's either 80 or 90% of all the podcasts on Apple right now
Mm-hmm.
are inactive.
Wow.
Because most people make a few episodes and just kind of give it up because they're like, hey, where's my 1,000,000 downloads after 10 episodes? What's going on here? Why am I not like a household name already? So I think of podcasting as a stadium,
Yeah.
and as a stadium on game day, and it's filled. You've got all these people outside trying to get into it. You've got all these people in the stands. But if you get through the crowds of the people who fall off, and this goes for anything else too, writing, or you want to be an actor or whatever, you want to make your way through the crowd, through the seats, through the sidelines, and then on the field, where it's a much smaller field of people compared to the whole stadium. And then once you're on the field, that's when you can really start playing. I'm not on the field in podcasting, and I don't expect to be, because I have a very niche type thing that I do. But I'm happy with the downloads I get, and I'm happy with the show that I put out. And I've gotten to the point where the way I do it, it doesn't take me a lot of time. For about 2 years in podcasting, I would probably spend 6 to 8 hours of my week editing. And I just can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I want to create, my writing is just a lot more important to me at this point.
Okay.
Personally. So that's why you need to check out Over the Ropes, Hellfighter Quinn, Space Police Files, and I've still got some things that have to be announced this year. But if I can do my little sheet plug, sign off, whatever you want to call it.
Do it.
The best way to keep track of me and what I'm doing is to go to jsandlin.com, sign up for my newsletter, and you will receive, monthly newsletters with the updates, places to order things, and freebies. I sent out my first newsletter this month. I sent out a free short story. One of the stories that's in Space Police Files was the newsletter this month. It was actually from the sample I read from the Exploding Vapor Virgin. A story that one Amazon reviewer wrote said, "I'll never look at clouds the same way again." And I hope after you read it, you never look at clouds the same way again.
Oh man. And with that being said, people, I leave links to everything down in the description below. Social media links, the website, the Amazon link, everything you need. Get Over the Ropes. The fella endorses it, and it's amazing. With that being said, Jay and I are signing out. You all,
we're going to go do some night surfing.
Yeah. So for y'all who don't know, Jay's in the other room. I'm here. We're gonna just go. We're gonna hop in the beach boogie. We're gonna go all the way down to North Shore. We can catch some waves. We're gonna go to the shrimp tacos. Right. Hey, did you enjoy this episode of the Kasanova podcast? Well, I'm sure you did. And since you did, and you're wondering where else you can find it on every podcasting outlet. Yes, that includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Launchpad DM by Podcast One, and so much more. And the only thing I ask of you is if you truly enjoyed it, even if you didn't enjoy it, please leave a rating and tell us what you thought of it, what you like, what you didn't like, and everything in between. And also, if you're looking for video formats of this podcast and many more, you'll be able to find them on youtube.com/Mekel Kasanova, as well as on twitch.tv/Mekel Kasanova, and new episodes every single Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, with that being said, this is Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii's favorite YouTuber. I am signing out. You guys have a great one.